I can't tell. Is it going to rain? Forecast says it's raining right now. It's not true. It's not raining. Definitely been windy though. Hey, what's up, gardening friends? Jeff here. So you're doing well. I'm great. Trying to get some stuff done in between storms out here. You hear the birds? Probably not, because I'm talking. They're really going for it. This happened, and I'm just letting it stay there. Because why would I pick it up? It's just going to blow back over again. It's supposed to just keep storming for the next several days. I've been busy doing a bunch of repottings and, well, this isn't a repotting, just potting stuff up. And what I need to be getting done out here is clearing out some space over here. This is all stuff that needs to get planted. Most of that's going to get done in vlogs and things like that. But there were some things specifically back here that I thought might be good to do in their own video. That's why you're here, right? Palm trees. Got one little washi right there. Come back in for number 2. Hey, see why these need to be repotted? Look at that. It's ridiculous. They could use a bump up. They don't need a very big one. They don't mind having their roots, I don't want to say smothered, but hugged. That sounds much nicer. Their roots can be hugged a little bit. They'll be fine with that. I should grab the gorilla cart, which is full of other things right now, and then some pots. Those were 10-inch containers, right? Yes? Zoom? I think so. One sand. Definitely gonna need sand. Okay, got some sand, potting mix, some agaves need to be repotted. I actually think these will probably work perfect. One of them. Hold them up next to them and have a good look at them. What are you doing? I didn't tell you could come over here. You crossed the line. You're supposed to cross the line. Turbo, come on. Come on. You know what to do. Get behind the line. That's the line. When I said he crossed the line, he knows about the line. Yeah, that's what you do. You're supposed to sit like a polite boy and then you're free. Now you're free. I'm not playing with you. That's never been a trick. You can come. You're free. Turbo, what are you doing? Come on. I wonder if maybe he thinks we might be getting into one of those. That's not happening right now. I think that's why he was hesitating. It's something to do. Back on topic. Palm trees. Okay, finally made it over here. I kept getting distracted and going on little side quests on the way over here, pulling weeds and those things. So, with palms, just speaking in general here, they don't need to go up into a very large size container. So, see, this one's going to be deeper. The next size down is going to be wider, which will work fine. I'm not thinking that there's going to be any issues with drainage in either one of these. I should pull these agaves out. They need to be repotted too. That's why I brought them out, because they're looking crammed in their containers. There has been a trend lately, though, that I've been noticing when I go to the nurseries to buy palms, that growers are starting to pot them up into much larger containers and rooting them out and selling them. Not necessarily getting much growth on them, but getting them rooted into larger containers. It's an option. You end up with a healthier plant the more they have a larger root system, right? So can go either way with this. This is really going to be, I think, about the same when you consider that this is wider, but it's not as shallow or not as deep, whereas this one over here, it's not as wide, but it's deeper. Now, I don't really think it matters which way I go with this. I'm going to go with more shallow. Something we should probably talk about, which is how do you know if you need to pot up your palm tree? Typically, when you see roots coming out of the top of the container like this and or the bottom, then it's pretty safe to say the plant could use a fresh potting. Needs an upgrade. Another thing that you may notice is that you're just watering the plant constantly, all the time, and it just doesn't seem happy, yet there's not moisture down here, there's no foul odors indicating root rot. Probably needs to get bumped up into a larger container, right? In the case with these, I would be repotting these no matter what, because there's no drainage in the bottom. Well, there is now, because I cut some slits into the sides, but these were the flood type containers where they just want them to hold on to water at the growers. That's fine in the tropical setting with professionals at home. Here, it's not warm enough for all that. This is not the type of setting for that kind of a mess, right? Need things to drain. The plants will not be happy if they're not draining. This is an all-purpose potting mix. You can use a mix made specifically for palm trees. I have never noticed the Washingtonias to be one that needs that. I would really only think that that's going to be a thing for palms that are extremely susceptible to rot. Washingtonias can be. So maybe if you live in a climate where it rains an awful lot, you have high levels of precipitation, then it might be a good idea to use something specifically made for palms and cactus. Or you can do what I'm going to do, which I will show you as soon as I get this container off, is I'm just going to add sand into the mix. I'm going to top dress it with a fine sand that will wash down into the blend. Okay, had to take out a little bit of soil there. It's good to look at the bottom, see what's going on here. See, there's a nice circular swirl, so it's smart to come in and try and untangle that root memory. Split it apart. When it's really bad, I've had to do this with Rhode palms before, just take a knife to it and just start chopping. It's better to go ahead and cut back some roots than to risk the plant being root wrapped in a few years, right? There are some palms where that wouldn't be a good idea. So sable palms, once you chop a root on a sable, the entire root dies. So you have to be very careful with them. That's not a good idea to mess with their roots if you can avoid it, unless you're just digging them up so that you can move them somewhere and restart them. That's a whole different conversation here. I'm going to go down as far as it seems wrapped, which is going to be down fairly far into this until that seems nice and loose. You find it interesting, notice the density of the roots. The further down you go, see, soil, 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 dense. That's down at the bottom of the container where there wasn't any drainage, right? So they seemed okay with it. Not gonna do that myself, but it's not necessarily a bad thing either, because those roots are going to look for moisture. These root balls are piled so high, not that easy to make them fit in there. So you can mix up your soil by hand, adding in things like gravel. Gravel works great. Some nice chunky perlite, another option. Like I said, with these, I just don't think that that's necessary for where I live. Maybe if I live someplace with a whole lot of rainfall, that would be different. I am going to top dress this with sand, just because regardless of whether or not I think that this palm tree is going to need the extra drainage, I do know that a lot of palms like to have some grit in their mix. So getting in some sand, again, potentially some gravel or perlite, not a bad idea. I'm using a mix that is already very, very, very well drained. You see all the perlite that's in there. Lots of organic material. And it's just an all-purpose. It's a proven winner's mix. Been having good luck with it so far. Only thing I will add, which I think I've said that several times, I keep adding more things, is that winter hardiness. That's what I was going to say, winter hardiness. That can be heavily influenced by your potting mix. So that's a good reason to make sure that you do have good drainage, nice sharp drainage, because cold and wet is the kiss of death for these palm trees. Want them to stay nice and dry if they're going to be cold. Oh, that looks nice. Great angle there. And all those roots that were down there, you can cover them up. They're white, they're fine, they're not calloused or anything like that. When they're calloused over, that is when I'm much more careful about being sure that I haven't covered a root up too much. Usually it's not a problem, but there are some palms where that can kill them. So if they have a lot of roots coming out from the base, which happens, it's actually very, very, very common, because they'll fill out their containers. People will go many years without repotting a palm tree, and then they'll slowly start to lift themselves out of the container. Then they'll build up some stilt-like roots down below the base. Those have been up for a long time. I don't think it would be a great idea to cover them up. So now this is done, I went ahead and I planted this at a slight angle because I would like for this palm to start to curve in the trunk, just because it's going to look neat. But it's also something I will severely regret in a few years when I have trouble getting the palm tree to stand up on its own. This is a very fine white sand. Very, very, very fine. I'm just going to work that into the top so that when I do the first watering, it doesn't go all over the place and spill out of the top of the container. I want it to go down into the soil. And it's fine enough that it will blend in on its own over time. Don't need to do the things I usually do where I would mix up a huge batch. Sometimes I would do that inside of like a brute container. I just don't think that all that's necessary for one of these. They're tough palms. I know it may seem like that was a lot of sand, but it really isn't, considering the size of this container. That was maybe 3 to 4 cups worth of that fine white sand for this entire pot. And it's going to slowly work its way through the soil over time. Sometimes I actually prefer to do things this way, because otherwise you need to pre-moisten the mix first, unless you want a lot of this fine sand to just wash out of things when you do your initial watering, and that's a pain. I don't want to do that. This one's root mass. It's not tangled up anywhere near as much. I'm still going to go through and loosen it up just to be safe. Just get in the bottom and just pull at it. Get all that stuff pulled out. Something else that's really important when potting anything, but especially a palm, is to make sure that you have a small mound of soil underneath the root ball if you've had to tear it like I did, and so there's a concave area at the bottom of the root mass. So you want to mount up some soil in the bottom of the container so that the concave part of the root mass can sit on top of that. Otherwise you end up with an air gap that will be problematic for years and years and years. You may not even realize that it's an issue until it's too late, because oftentimes the symptoms that show up with a sad plant don't show up until things have gotten pretty bad. It can lead to root rot, basically. It's an area for anaerobic bacteria to harbor themselves and breed and just go to town and cause a lot of problems, right? You want the roots to be in contact with soil as much as possible. Okay, I'm going to get these watered in. If you were wondering about when to repot, my general rule of thumb is mid to late spring into early to midsummer. A lot of that does depend on your climate. If it's going to be over, I'd say 95 degrees Fahrenheit, then probably shouldn't be repotting anything. And if it's going to be below, I'd say 75 degrees, then you may as well just wait, because they prefer things to be much on the warmer side. It is late April, so this video will be out probably sometime in May right now. And our daytime temperatures are in the mid 70s to mid 80s, and we're having nighttime dips into the 50s. So I'm somewhat premature with this. Also, do you see what I was talking about? You see how, look at that, the sand. It's like all gone already. That's what I meant with this really fine sand. I just prefer to top dress with it and mix it in with my watering, because when I blend it in beforehand, I feel like a lot of it ends up just washing out, and you don't even have any left underneath the palm or around the roots. They're fast growers, right? So something to keep in mind with that is that these will probably need to be repotted in probably a year, whereas there are plenty of other palms where I could bump them up into a container where these probably had, what, about 2 inches, I would say, on the outside diameter of the root ball, maybe an inch and a half. A lot of palms can go many years without being repotted. These grow so fast. This time next year, those pots will be bulging out, the roots will be coming out the bottom, and they just grow faster with a fresh mix of soil in the container. So that's about how often I would say you need to repot a Washingtonia. Maybe every year. You don't have to, though, because they are incredibly sturdy palms. So I could keep these in these pots for up to 5 years until their trunk is, you know, that big around, and they have no root mass on them. As long as I'm fertilizing them with every single watering and basically growing them hydroponically, they would be okay with that. But I think it would be easier to care for them if they have a fresh mix every year, maybe 2 years at the max end. And their growth rate will slow down significantly when they're, I'd say, about 5.5 to 6 feet tall of trunk on them. Once the trunks are about like up to here, they tend to slow down. They're going to spend a few years climbing up, girthing out, and then they slow. But even at a slowdown, they still grow pretty dang quickly. They grow pretty dang quickly. And I will be fertilizing with, I like the Perfect Palm Fertilizer. Palm Gain is just fine. Not worried about any of that right now. They've just now been repotted. They're into a fresh potting mix that has some fertilizer in it. But chances are in the next month or so, when I do the rest of my palms, not chances are, definitely, when I'm doing the rest of the palms, in about a month from now, I will be working in a continuous release palm fertilizer around the root mass. And that's one that I repeat every 2 months during the growing season. Growing season just meaning when we're within those temperatures I was talking about before. So these are going to want a minimum of about 8 hours of light a day, right? Because they're a palm that likes things really sunny. So morning sun into early afternoon. They can take afternoon shade and be just fine, but they'll start to get really stretched out and look pretty odd if they get much more shade than that. If you want a nice stout bulky plant, all day sun. That's the way to go for that. Lots of light, lots of warmth, then they're going to need regular fertilizing and watering. I cut back on watering drastically during the winter time. I basically barely even water these at all during the winter time. I have a new heater in my grow space, so that will probably be different this year than from other years when I've had these before I had that new heater that keeps things pretty warm. Even still, they tend to do better in an indoor environment when they're kept more on the dry side. They're so prone to rot when temperatures are cool. That's just a thing with a lot of tropicals. And any of the ones that grow particularly well in a desert setting, that's usually especially true for them too. They're cute. I love them. I think Washingtonias are great. And a lot of what I said in this video, it'll apply to the majority of palms that you might be picking up and keeping at home. There was one thing that I figured I should probably say, it's because I know a lot of you are in the UK, that I would up the drainage if you're a UK viewer, because you have more precipitation, you don't have the warmth. The cooler your temperatures, more precipitation, the better that drainage needs to be. Ideally, it should be sharp drainage no matter what, but you get what I'm saying? Like, just to be safe, you want that mixture to drain pristinely. I take such good care of my palm trees. You should be listening to me. Oh, and if you were wondering about having this one with the angle right there, that curve in the trunk, it will eventually grow up and at an angle, and it's going to look really cool. That it is going to be a royal pain in the butt keeping it upright when it's in a pot, once they have some curve to the trunk. So this will have to be something where it goes into the ground at some point, even in the container, just goes into the ground to help keep it from wobbling around. Only do this if you're willing to commit to having a plant that's going to be a pain in the butt someday. Okay, that's all. Hey, thanks for hanging out. Comment down below tips, tricks, suggestions, anything you have to add, or always appreciates. The community, right? It's how we all learn and grow together. I'm sure I've left some things out. There are lots of different types of palm trees. This is all pretty broad, basic stuff. Good drainage, when to repot, how to repot. They're palm trees. They're pretty forgiving. At least the Washingtonias are. Hope everybody's doing well. Having a great day, a great life, and everything's going absolutely beautifully for you. And of course, as always, and most important, everybody, keep on growing. Bye.